we were burning cash. We ended up burning like $44 million. And this thing really isn't getting any traction yet.
Lorenzo called me one day. I was in my office and he's like,
when do we pull the plug on this thing? Is this thing gonna work?
I can't keep doing this to my family and blowing all my family's money on this thing, man. Get out there and see what you can sell this thing for. And I was like, I called him back at the end of the day and I said, maybe we can get 5 or 6 million for this thing.
Lorenzo calls you the next day and essentially says, F it.
He literally said,
Okay, so he literally says, F it.
F it. Let's keep going.
The UFC throws a Hail Mary attempt and takes a page out of professional wrestling.
I've told people for years, I've worked for the UFC for like 8 years now, the only reason why professional wrestling does big buy rates on pay-per-view is because they have a weekly television show that acts like an infomercial for it.
We said, we need to come up with a reality show. Literally, me and my team went into my office at like 8 o'clock at night, and we bounced a zillion different concepts around, and that's the one we came up with. So all these guys live in a house. For those of you that don't know, they're coached by 2 big stars in the UFC. Every time you fight and you lose, you get eliminated.
It's about, do you want to be a fighter? Anybody who says they don't, I don't want you here.
And it would end with a finale. 2 guys fight in the finale. 1 guy becomes the Ultimate Fighter and gets a contract with the UFC.
The idea is to use reality TV as a Trojan horse to sneak MMA on cable TV.
But at the end of every episode, there's a live fight. You know what I mean? There was a fight that would be on TV.
That was the last $10 million investment the brothers were putting in. This is it. We're going to give this thing a shot. If it works, good. If it doesn't, that's a wrap. It's over.
So we're $44 million in the hole, and we're out trying to pitch this thing to television.
We were literally begging everybody to take us on TV. We couldn't find anybody.
They're terrified to put this thing on. That's the other thing. In the television business, nobody has any balls.
We ultimately found Viacom Spike Network,
calling themselves the Men's Network. We're like, oh, this is perfect for us. The network for men, they can't deny this.
We give them the pitch. They couldn't wait to get the out of this meeting.
And they said they wouldn't pay us for the content.
So what we said is, how about if we pay for it and give it to you for free? Oh, they like that idea a lot better. We threw this thing on Spike TV with 0 advertising.
And the thing goes like this, takes off.
The ratings were through the roof.
But halfway through the season, the president of Spike gets fired.
They had made all these promises to me and everything else, all dead. So we go through this whole season. It's unbelievably successful, and we honestly didn't know if we were going to have a second season.
We go into the finale. We have no deal. Nothing.
Kenny Florian fights a guy named Diego Sanchez. They go out there and fight. Diego Sanchez smokes him in like 40 seconds. Terrible. We've got 2 hours of programming to fill, and I'm like, oh my God, this is a nightmare. But the savior, Stephan Bonner and Forrest Griffin. So these 2 guys come out, light heavyweights, and they put on the sickest fight you have ever seen in your life.
And the numbers during the fight went just like this.
The place is going crazy.
People were stomping their feet, and it sounded like a train was going through the arena. And at the end of the fight, people were chanting, one more round, one more round.
We ended up giving both guys a UFC contract that night, which made the place even go crazier.
I knew when that fight was over, it didn't matter if we did another deal with Spike TV or didn't do another deal. We did it. We made it. We were going somewhere.
Yeah. We literally got up out of our chairs, walked out into the alley, and cut the deal for season 2.
We cut a new deal on a napkin.
I know that sounds dramatic, but it's true. If that first season didn't happen, I would not be sitting here right now.
It's the craziest story ever. You literally couldn't write this shit.
After that success, the UFC doubles down on Spike TV programming. They create UFC Unleashed, Fight Nights, and Countdowns. Also a video game, UFC Undisputed. In doing so, they develop a self-sustaining feedback loop. Check this out. You can see their strategy has 4 aspects: attract, convert, immerse, and extend. You attract people by airing content for free. Then you convert them to pay-per-view. Finally, you throw more experiences and product their way. It's always about feeding more and more people into that loop. So what the UFC ends up needing more than anything is content. And somehow the mob comes to the rescue. In Japan, a rumor starts going around that Japanese mafia, the Yakuzas, are involved with Pride FC. They are using the organization to launder money by gambling on fights and fixing them. Once the cable companies learn that, they cut all ties with the organization. Pride FC practically goes bankrupt within the span of a year. And guess who buys them? The UFC jumps on the opportunity, acquiring all their fighters an entire library of content in the process. The UFC starts airing free fights the same nights that their competitors have pay-per-views. So if you're the average mixed martial arts fan on a Saturday night, would you rather pay to watch a second-tier organization or just watch some of the best UFC and Pride fights for free on TV? That's how the UFC destroys competition.
Is WEC merging with the UFC?
Yes.
UFC has purchased Strikeforce. Is that true?
That is true.
When they buy them out, they get even more content to add to their library, which they can air for free and drive more competition out of business. It's exponential.
We've got a library of 20,000 hours of original content.
Why did you go out and purchase Strikeforce?
We need more fights. We need more fights, more fights.
In 2011, one of Dana's biggest goals comes to fruition.
We ended up doing a huge deal with Fox.
Because this is a really, really big day.
This is what I always wanted. What we have is a lot of content. We needed to get our content out there, and they spread our content across all their platforms. Fox is the #1 network in the country. And all those people out there that thought I was a lunatic 10 years ago when I said that this was going to be the biggest sport in the world.
Some still do. Some still do.
I know.
Call it a coincidence, but a few months after the Fox deal, ESPN comes after the UFC.
You ever hear of John Skipper?
No.
John Skipper ran ESPN. Hates UFC.
Hates it.
Hates it.
Let's talk about Fox Sports. Okay, so these guys have just launched.
We're happy. We like competition. It's fun.
They release an Outside the Lines piece, which targets UFC's practices, but more specifically, fighter pay.
ESPN doesn't care about the sport. ESPN hates this sport. They won't even cover it. They're dirty. They're dirty. They lie. And they never really give you all the facts.
The piece is followed by an antitrust lawsuit against the UFC.
The multi-billion-dollar antitrust lawsuit it's currently facing from former UFC fighters.
We filed this case in December of 2014 on behalf of a group of mixed martial arts fighters who fought for the UFC.
The government came after us and called us a monopoly.
I do believe they have a monopoly. I don't know how anyone could think they don't.
The lawsuit claims the UFC, quote, engaged in an illegal scheme to eliminate competition.
I mean, anyone that starts to even be up and coming at all, they buy them out or they drive them out.
That allows it to pay fighters, quote, a fraction of what they would earn in a competitive marketplace.
We're spending, $7-8 million a year trying to defend ourselves from the government as a monopoly.
It works. The government drops the case, the UFC keeps on expanding.